"Why are you sleeping with pigs?" Mountain Man asked the obese woman. Then, the mountain was a kingdom of stone and silence, where only the strongest survived and the weakest became food for wolves. Ezra McKinnon had ruled this harsh domain for 7 years, a man carved from granite and winter wind, his heart as frozen as the peaks that scraped the belly of God's own sky. He expected to find another dead deer in his trap line that morning. What he found instead would shatter his world like ice cracking under spring sun. In the ruins of an abandoned homestead where wild pigs rooted through the remnants of someone else's broken dreams, a woman lay curled among the animals. She was massive, her body a mountain of flesh wrapped in tattered cloth, using the warm bodies of swine as her blanket against the killing cold. When she stirred her eyes, meeting his through the morning mist, Ezra spoke the words that would echo through both their souls. "Why are you sleeping with pigs?" It wasn't cruelty that made him ask. It was the genuine bewilderment of a man who had forgotten that sometimes when the world casts you out, you take warmth wherever you can find it. This is the story of two outcasts who found home in each other's broken hearts. What do you think drives someone to such desperate measures for survival? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The trap line stretched through Devil's Canyon like a rosary of steel and death. Ezra checked each snare with the methodical precision of a man who had learned that carelessness was just another word for dying slow. 7 years on this mountain. 7 years of silence. The abandoned Hartley place squatted in a clearing like a rotting tooth, its roof caved in its dreams, long since scattered to the four winds. Wild pigs had claimed it, now rooting through the kitchen garden that had once fed a family of 5. That's where he saw her. A mass of brown wool and human misery curled between two sows like some fevered dream of St. Francis. At first his mind refused to process what his eyes were showing him. A woman. Here. In this God-forsaken place where even the ghosts had given up. She was enormous. Not fat, that word was too small, too cruel. She was a landscape of flesh, rolling hills and deep valleys, a geography of shame that someone had carved into human form. Her face, pillowed on her arm, was beautiful in the way that broken things sometimes are. High cheekbones, skin like cream despite the dirt, lashes thick as raven wings. The pigs grunted and shifted, accepting her as one of their own. "Christ Almighty," Ezra whispered. At the sound of his voice she stirred. Her eyes opened, brown as creek water, deep as sorrow, and fixed on his face. There was no fear in them. Fear was a luxury for people who still had something left to lose. "Why are you sleeping with pigs?" The words fell from his mouth like stones into a still pond. He hadn't meant to be cruel. 7 years of solitude had stripped the polish from his speech, left only the raw core of curiosity. She pushed herself upright with surprising grace, disturbing the pigs who snorted their displeasure. When she spoke, her voice was honey over broken glass. They don't judge, they don't stare, they just share their warmth. The simple truth of it hit him like a fist to the gut. "How long?" he asked. 3 days. Maybe 4. Time moves different when you're dying. She wasn't asking for rescue, wasn't pleading or making excuses, just stating facts like a woman reading the weather. The dignity of it made something twist in his chest, some long-dead organ struggling back to life. "You got a name. Mabel. Mabel Hutchins." She studied his face, taking in the wild beard, the eyes like winter sky. "You're the mountain man. The one they say killed his family." "I didn't kill nobody," Ezra said quietly. "Sometimes, not killing is the worst thing you can do." Something passed between them then. A recognition. Two creatures who knew what it meant to be cast out to carry sins they couldn't name. "Well, Mabel Hutchins," he said, shouldering his rifle. "You can't stay here. Winter's coming and these pigs won't keep you warm when the real cold sets in. I'm not your problem." "No. But you're here." And I'm here, and that makes it complicated." He turned to go, then stopped. 7 years of isolation screaming at him to walk away to let nature take its course. But when he looked back at her, this broken woman among the swine, he saw something that made his hands shake. He saw himself. The walk to his cabin was a funeral march of unspoken truths. Mabel followed 10 paces behind her, breathing labored but determined. Each step was a negotiation between her body and the mountain, between her will and the weight she carried. Ezra didn't offer help, didn't slow his pace. Something told him she'd rather die than accept pity. Smart woman. His cabin crouched against a granite cliff like something grown from the stone itself. 1 room, 1 window, 1 door, built for a hermit, not hospitality. "It ain't much," he said, pushing open the door. "It's got walls," she replied. "That's more than I've had in a week." Inside, the space felt even smaller. His world of rough-hewn furniture and hanging pelts suddenly seemed impossibly cramped. Where would she sleep? How would they move around each other without— "I can take the floor," she said, reading his thoughts. "No." The word came out harder than he intended. "I'll rig something up outside. Lean-to, maybe." "You don't have to. I don't have to do anything. But winter kills quick up here, and I won't have your death on my conscience." She settled onto a single chair which creaked ominously under her weight. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence stretched between them like a bridge neither was sure they wanted to cross. "Why?" she asked finally. "Why? What? Why help me? You don't know me. Don't owe me nothing." Ezra turned to his wood stove, began feeding it kindling with hands that trembled just slightly. How could he explain that in her eyes he'd seen the same hollow acceptance he carried, that her dignity in the pig pen had shamed him in ways he couldn't name? "Maybe I'm tired of talking to myself," he said instead. "I'm not much for conversation." "Good. Neither am I." He put coffee on to boil the familiar ritual, steadying his nerves. Outside, wind moaned through the pines like something dying. First storm of the season coming fast. "Tell me," he said, not turning around, "what kind of family throws out their own blood?" Her laugh was bitter as winter tea. "The kind that's got more shame than sense. The kind that can't afford to feed what they can't stand to look at. Their loss? You don't know me well enough to say that." He turned, then studied her face in the lamplight. Saw intelligence there, strength, a beauty that had nothing to do with the flesh that housed it. "No," he agreed. "But I know enough about family to know when someone's been judged wrong." "What happened to yours?" The question hung in the air like smoke from a dying fire. Ezra poured coffee, handed her a cup. Their fingers brushed in the exchange, and he was surprised by the warmth of her skin. "Fever took them," he said finally. "Wife. 2 boys. I was off hunting, came back to graves." "That's not your fault. Isn't it man supposed to protect what's his? I failed at the one job that mattered." "So, you ran to the mountain." "I came here to die. Mountain had other plans." Outside, the first snowflakes began to fall, thick and lazy. Winter, announcing its intentions. Mabel watched through the window, her face thoughtful. "Might be we're both running from things that ain't our fault," she said. "Might be." That night, he built a lean-to against the cabin's south wall. Used his best furs, his warmest blankets. She watched him work without comment, but he caught her wiping her eyes when she thought he wasn't looking. No one had built her shelter since she was a child. No one had cared if she lived or died. Until now. 3 weeks into winter, and the mountain had become a white cathedral of silence and survival. Mabel moved through his small world like water finding its level. She didn't take over, that wasn't her way. Instead, she filled the empty spaces he hadn't even known existed. A pot of stew simmering when he returned from his trapline. his clothes mended with stitches so fine they seemed drawn by angels, the cabin organized with a woman's eye for efficiency. "You don't have to," he'd started to say that first week. "I know," she'd replied, not looking up from the shirt she was patching. "But idle hands make for a restless mind, and Lord knows my mind's restless enough." They developed a rhythm careful, as dancers learning a new step. He rose before dawn, checked his traps, hunted when the weather allowed. She tended the fire, cooked, cleaned, did the thousand small tasks that transformed a shelter into a home. In the evenings they sat by the fire, sometimes talking, more often not. "You ever been married?" she asked one night, watching him carve a new trigger for his rifle trap. "Once, long time ago." His hands never stopped moving. "You? Who'd have me?" The matter-of-fact way she said it made his chest tight. No self-pity, just acknowledgement of a truth she'd lived with all her life. "Lot of fools in the world," he said quietly. She looked at him, then really looked. "You don't see me the way others do." "I see you fine." "That's not what I mean." He set down his carving, met her gaze across the fire. "I see a woman who's survived things that would break most men. I see hands that can make bread from nothing and patch wounds that won't heal right. I see someone who don't complain when the world hands her nothing but grief." Her breath caught. "Ezra, I see someone worth knowing. That's what I see." The next morning brought a blizzard that sealed them inside for 3 days. The cabin that had once felt cramped became cozy. They played cards with a deck so worn the numbers were memories. She taught him songs her grandmother had sung. He showed her how to read weather and the movement of smoke. On the second day she asked about his family. "Tell me about your boys." The words came easier than they ever had. Maybe it was the storm outside creating a pocket of safety. Maybe it was her way of listening, complete without judgment, without trying to fix what couldn't be mended. "Tommy was 8. Had your way with wounded things. Always bringing home baby birds broken-winged to sparrows. Said everything deserved a chance to heal. And the other, James, 6 years old and already reading like a preacher. Smart as a whip, that boy. Asked questions that'd make your head spin. They sound wonderful." They were. His voice caught. "Sarah, my wife, she used to say Tommy got her heart. James got her brains, but they both got my stubborn streak. What would they think of me?" The question surprised him. "Tommy would have loved you. Boy never met a creature he didn't want to help. James would have pestered you with questions till you wanted to hide. And Sarah," Ezra was quiet for a long moment, "Sarah would have recognized what I'm just starting to see, which is that some people are born to heal broken things, even broken men." That night, for the first time since coming to the mountain, Ezra didn't wake screaming from dreams of empty graves. Instead, he woke to the sound of humming. Mabel, thinking he was asleep, sang soft lullabies while she tended the fire. Songs meant for children who would never hear them. Songs meant for the family she'd never been allowed to have. Something in his chest cracked open. Not breaking, healing, like ice giving way to spring. Spring came late to the high country, grudging and uncertain. The snow retreated in fits and starts revealing a world scrubbed clean and hungry for life. Mabel had been with him 4 months now. 4 months of shared silence, small kindnesses, and something deeper growing between them like wildflowers after a long winter. It couldn't last. Nothing good ever did. He was checking the fish traps by Willow Creek when he heard them. Horses. 3 of them picking their way up the narrow trail that led to his domain. Ezra melted into the tree-line rifle ready and watched. 2 men and a woman. City clothes, expensive horses. The woman rode side-saddle despite the rough terrain, her back straight as a church pew. Even from a distance he could see the family resemblance. Same jawline as Mabel. same proud set to the shoulders. Her sister. Up here somewhere, the woman was saying. The pig farmer said he saw tracks leading this way. Constance, this is madness, one of the men replied. She's probably dead by now. The exposure alone, she's not dead. The voice cut like winter wind. Mabel's too stubborn to die, too spiteful. Ezra felt rage bloom in his chest, hot and sudden. This was the family that had cast out one of their own, these polished, pretty people who spoke of Mabel like she was vermin. Even if she's alive, the second man said, what's the point? Bringing her back won't change anything. She's still what she is. The will states clearly, Constance replied. All of Father's children must be present for the reading, including the embarrassment. We find her, we get our inheritance. We don't, she shrugged. Well, that's more for us to split. Ezra had heard enough. He ghosted through the trees, reaching the cabin before they did. Mabel was outside, hanging laundry on a line he'd strung between two pines. She looked up at his approach, saw something in his face that made her smile die. What is it? Company coming. Your family. The wet shirt she'd been holding fell from her fingers. No, they wouldn't. How did they find me? Does it matter? He grabbed her hand, felt it trembling in his. They're not taking you. Ezra, you don't understand. They have money influence. They can make trouble for you. Let them try. The sound of hoofbeats grew closer. Mabel straightened, and he watched her transform before his eyes. The soft woman who sang lullabies disappeared, replaced by someone harder, someone who'd learned to armor herself in dignity. Stay behind me, he said. No. Her voice was steel wrapped in silk. I've been running from them my whole life. Not anymore. They rode into the clearing like conquering heroes, all polish and presumption. The woman, Constance, pulled up short when she saw Mabel. Her eyes widened, then narrowed with familiar disgust. Dear God, Mabel, you look like you've been living with animals. I have been, Mabel replied evenly. Civilized ones. The insult landed like a slap. Constance's face flushed, but she composed herself quickly. Father's dead. The will's being read next Tuesday. You need to come home. This is my home. Don't be ridiculous. This hovel with this mountain savage, you can't be serious. Ezra stepped forward, and something in his movement made the men reach for their weapons. He smiled, not pleasantly. Careful with your words, lady. My mountain. My rules. Are you threatening us? One of the men demanded. Just explaining the facts of life up here. People who show disrespect tend to have accidents. Awful lot of cliffs around. Easy to lose your footing. Constance studied him with cold calculation. What did she promise you? Her body, whatever pathetic gratitude a creature like her can offer. The words hung in the air like poison. Ezra's hand moved to his knife, but Mabel's voice stopped him. That's enough. She stepped between them, her chin raised. Say what you came to say and get off our land. Our land. Constance laughed, but there was something nervous in it now. You think this wild man actually cares about you. You think he sees past that mountain of flesh to whatever delusion you call a soul. I think, Ezra said quietly, your sister's worth 10 of you. And I think you got about 5 seconds to get back on those horses before I forget my manners. We're not leaving without her, Constance declared. Then you're not leaving at all. The threat hung between them real as winter cold. But Mabel had stopped listening. Her eyes were fixed on something beyond the clearing, and a slow smile spread across her face. A smile that held secrets. Actually, she said, I think they should stay, at least until morning. Ezra followed her gaze and felt his own smile grow. Storm clouds black as judgment rolling in from the north. The storm hit like the wrath of God, transforming the world into a howling white hell. Within an hour, the trail down the mountain had vanished under 3 feet of snow. Constance and her companions, Lawyer Pemberton and hired gun Morrison, found themselves trapped in a one-room cabin with the sister they'd come to collect and the mountain man who'd claimed her. "This is intolerable," Constance declared, eyeing the crude furnishings with barely concealed disgust. "Surely there's somewhere else we can wait this out." "Sure," Ezra replied mildly, banking the fire. "About 2 miles down there's a nice cave. Of course it's home to a mama bear and her cubs, but they might share if you ask nice." "He's joking," Pemberton said nervously. "Am I?" Ezra's smile showed too many teeth. The wind outside shrieked like damned souls rattling the shutters. Snow piled against the windows, turning the glass into white mirrors. The cabin that had felt cozy with 2 people now seemed impossibly cramped with 5. "How long do these storms typically last?" Morrison asked. He was a lean man with killer's eyes, but even he looked uneasy. "Depends," Ezra shrugged. "Could be a day, could be a week." "A week," Constance's voice climbed toward hysteria. "We can't stay here a week." "Then you shouldn't have come," Mabel said quietly. She moved about the cabin with practiced efficiency, putting on coffee, checking their meager supplies. Ezra watched her with growing concern. 5 people's supplies for 2. They'd be on short rations soon. "There's not enough food," Pemberton observed, coming to the same conclusion. "No," Ezra agreed. "There's not." The implications hung in the air like smoke. Constance's face went pale. "You can't be serious. You'd let us starve." "Wouldn't let nobody starve," Ezra replied. "But choices have consequences. You came uninvited to a place that don't welcome strangers. Now, you got to live with that choice." As if summoned by his words, a new sound joined the storm symphony. A low rumbling growl that seemed to come from the very walls. "What was that?" Morrison's hand moved to his pistol. "Hungry bear, probably," Ezra said casually. "Storm drives them down from the high country. They smell people sometimes, they get curious." Another growl, closer this time, then a heavy thud against the cabin's north wall. "Jesus Christ," Pemberton whispered. "Language," Mabel chided gently, but her face was grave. She met Ezra's eyes across the room, and he saw she understood. This wasn't just about food or shelter anymore. This was about survival. The bear circled the cabin for hours, a massive presence testing their defenses. When it finally moved on, the silence it left behind was somehow worse than the noise. "Why didn't you shoot it?" Morrison demanded. "With what?" Ezra gestured to his rifle leaning against the far wall. "One shot, and if I miss, that bear comes through this wall like it's made of paper. Plus, gunpowder's precious. Might need it for something more important." His eyes found Morrison's as he spoke. The hired gun got the message. By the 3rd day, the food was running low. They were down to beans and bacon, fat coffee grounds boiled twice. The storm showed no signs of letting up. "This is your fault," Constance snarled at Mabel. "If you'd just come when we asked, none of this would have happened. If you'd left me alone like I asked 17 years ago, none of this would have happened either," Mabel replied. 17 years. Ezra looked between the sisters. "That's when our parents shipped me off to finishing school," Mabel explained. "Really just a place to hide fat daughters until they could figure out what to do with them." "We were trying to help you," Constance protested. "You were trying to hide me. There's a difference. Can you blame us? Look at yourself. You're a walking embarrassment to the family name." The slap came so fast, Ezra barely saw Mabel's hand move. Constance stumbled backward, her cheek blooming red. "I've listened to your poison for 32 years, Mabel said, her voice deadly quiet. "I've let you make me believe I was less than human because I don't fit your idea of what a woman should be. But no more." She turned to face them all, Constance nursing her cheek, Pemberton cowering behind his legal papers, Morrison calculating odds with predator's eyes. "You want to know why I stay up here? It's not because of him." She gestured toward Ezra. "Though he's a better man than any of you deserve to meet. It's because up here, I'm not a burden. I'm not an embarrassment. I'm just Mabel. And for the first time in my life, that's enough." "Pretty words," Morrison said, standing slowly. "But they don't change facts. You're coming with us when this storm breaks. Willing or not. Try it," Ezra said softly. The two men faced each other across the small room. Morrison was younger faster, but Ezra had 7 years of mountain living in his bones, and something more dangerous than skill. He had something to protect. "Gentlemen," Pemberton said nervously, "surely we can discuss this rationally." His words were cut off by a new sound. Not wind, not bear. Voices, human voices, calling through the storm. Ezra moved to the window, peered through a gap in the shutters. His face went grim. "More company," he announced. "And this bunch don't look friendly." Through the swirling snow they could see torchlights. Men on snowshoes armed and moving with purpose. "Who are they?" Constance demanded. "Bounty hunters, probably," Morrison said, suddenly looking less sure of himself. "I might have mentioned your sister's location to a few interested parties." Constance rounded on him. "You what? Insurance," he shrugged, "in case the mountain man here proved uncooperative." The voices were getting closer. Rough men with rough intentions drawn by the promise of easy money. Mabel looked at Ezra, and he saw no fear in her eyes. Only a terrible, beautiful resolve. "How many bullets you got?" she asked. "Enough," he replied, but they both knew it wasn't true. The torches drew closer like fallen stars seeking Earth. 8 men. Ezra counted, squinting through the storm. "Maybe 9, all armed." He turned from the window, his face carved from winter granite. "Morrison, this is your mess. You want to walk out there and call them off." The hired gun had gone pale. "They're not exactly the listening type." "Then we make our stand here." Constance's voice cracked. "You'd defend us after everything we've said." "I ain't defending you," Ezra replied, checking his rifle. "I'm defending my home. You just happen to be in it." The voices outside grew clearer. Rough men speaking rough words about what they'd do when they found the fat woman and her mountain lover. Mabel listened to their crude promises without flinching, but Ezra saw her hands clench into fists. "They think they're hunting wounded prey," she said quietly. "Are they wrong?" Constance whispered. Mabel turned, and in her eyes was something none of them had ever seen before. Not the broken woman who'd slept with pigs. Not the grateful victim rescued from shame. This was someone new. Someone forged in mountain winters and quiet dignity. Someone who'd finally found her fight. "Yes," she said. "They're wrong." She moved to Ezra's side, began loading his spare rifle with steady hands. "How do you want to play this?" "Wait," Pemberton sputtered. "You can't be serious. There are 8 of them. 9. Morrison corrected, then caught himself. "I mean, we should negotiate. Offer them money to leave." "You think men who track a woman through a blizzard can be bought off?" Ezra's laugh was winter wind through dead trees. "They're here for blood sport now." A shout from outside. "McKinnon, we know you're in there. Send out the woman and we'll make this quick." "Counter offer," Ezra called back. "You turn around and ride out and I won't have to bury you in the spring." Harsh laughter answered him. Then the sound of men taking positions around the cabin. "They'll wait for dawn," Ezra said.